as Chris Biderman, who's with us now, does an amazing job covering the Sacramento Kings. For the Sacramento Bee, does an amazing job covering the San Francisco 49ers as well, and Candlestick Chronicles. But Chris, it's Malik Monk Day, and we were just talking on the live stream, on the video stream on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. You were, like we were, a bit surprised that this was announced so quickly.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, if you just say to Malik Monk, like, "Hey, Malik, what's good? What's going on?" He'll tell you $100 million. That's like one of his like go-to responses when you say, "Hey, what's good?" And so, even listening to De'Aaron Fox after the team lost in the play-in in New Orleans, talking about, the possibility with Malik hitting free agency this summer, De'Aaron Fox wasn't exactly exuding a whole lot of confidence that Malik would be back. He was like, "Yeah, it'd be great to have Malik back, but it's a business." And the reading between the lines, it sounded like Fox thought there would be better offers elsewhere. And, in my mind, I was like, yeah, if you can go play in, a state like Florida with no state income taxes and get $100 million from the Orlando Magic, then like that would be a pretty advantageous situation. You'd still be on a, playoff team. You could be a key part of a playoff team there. And in my head, that's kind of where I thought this would go. And I know, he obviously was a great fit with the Kings, is a great fit with the Kings, Mike Brown, De'Aaron Fox, the whole roster. But I was a little bit surprised because I do think he took a discount. And I think he took less money to maybe stay in a place where he's more comfortable, where he obviously is a really great fit. He makes it very clear over and over again that he loves playing in Sacramento, that he loves the fans. So it's a huge deal for the Kings, because had they not been able to retain Malik, this offseason looks a lot different, and it probably becomes a lot harder for them to improve the roster. So with Malik back, they still have avenues to improve the roster, and I think they're sitting in a pretty good spot. So it's a huge development for the Kings, because I was pretty surprised, man. I thought he was going to go get $100 million from the Magic, or wherever else. I thought there was going to be a better offer out there, and maybe there were, but I think this shows that he was pretty committed to being in a place where he's a really good fit in Sacramento.
See, the thing, Chris, that I always believed was I didn't think, I could be wrong, might definitely be wrong, but I didn't think there was $100 million offer out there from teams that made sense, right? Like,
sure,
we talked about, possibly Detroit.
Yeah,
and Detroit could throw $100 million offer out there, but like Damian said earlier, enjoy that, because that might be one of your last big contracts. So. Right. They really wouldn't work out the way people thought it might. Orlando, I never thought Orlando was going to get to 100. I never thought San Antonio was going to get to 100. I thought he was at best about a $20 million a year guy, which would put him at 80, which was not far from the Kings 70, 78. And I always thought if it was that close, you might as well just come back to Sacramento, where this situation. They in some ways tailor the offense and what they do around your skill set. And like Dame pointed out perfectly so many times, is that lines you up to get another $100 million potentially or more with your situation here in Sacramento. So I always felt, if that was the case, if it was somebody saying $20 million a year, Malik, we want you to play, I'd be like, I don't think that's enough to get him out of Sacramento, unless he's just like to the penny money motivated. And I didn't know if he was or not, but I hoped he wasn't.
Yeah, and there's the element of, the last year, what's been reported, the last year is a player option. So that's about as much of a sweetener as the Kings could offer him, given the financial restraints with the early bird rights and those things. So yeah, man, I think it's nothing but positive for the Kings. I think, like, honestly, I was surprised, but I everything you said, I agree with. Like, maybe the market, maybe we're so used to the market being inflated and like seeing these Allen Crabbe and Evan Turner deals, and always thinking about like the cap spiking and, guys are just going to get paid because the cap's going to keep going up. Maybe teams are just, a little bit more reluctant to throw big contracts around because they've seen what's happened with Evan Turner and Allen Crabbe and those types, and just said like, no, we're going to be more prudent. And maybe the free agent money comes back to earth a little bit this summer.
We've been pretty adamant today, like, hey, we're gonna have fun. We're gonna this is a big deal. Malik Monk is back. We're gonna celebrate it. We're gonna have fun. But come Monday, it's like it's a question I'll ask you. Okay, now what? Like the draft's 3 days away, free agency's a few days after that. Like, all right, great. No, it was fun. Had a great weekend. Popped some Luke Belair. It was a good look. But okay, what are we gonna do now?
So, there's Jake Fisher from Yahoo's been reporting about Zach LaVine. The first question I have about the whole Zach LaVine thing, and I guess I'll ask you guys this: would you rather have Kyle Kuzma than Zach LaVine?
I would, yeah. I think we
Because the contract is like quite literally half as much with Zach LaVine. You're looking at, I think it's like 43, 45, and 48 with a player option in that third year for Zach LaVine. So he would come to the Kings and be the highest paid player coming off foot surgery. Um, that's kind of scary to me. And I think, the number, they play different positions, obviously, but the numbers are pretty comparable with Kuzma. What they bring to the team would be pretty comparable. But Kuzma's at like 22 and then 20 and 18 over the next 3 years. It's like half as much money for similar production. And I don't know, if Kuzma's even available, I don't know that you would have to give Washington a whole lot more in a trade than you would for Zach LaVine. And not to say, getting Zach LaVine, I think he would give the Kings some much needed punch, particularly in the playoffs or in a postseason setting, giving them another scorer, really a third scorer, to pair with, De'Aaron, Malik, and Keegan. I mean, a four scorer, if you want to put it that way, too, to surround Domas, who would be a screener, distributor, passer type guy. It would make sense. Just the health concerns and the contract scares me. And I wonder, man, like, wouldn't you rather have Kyle Kuzma, who's making half the money that Zach LaVine is, over the same years? Like, I think to me that makes more sense, but I would totally understand the upgrade that Zach LaVine presents. I would just be a little worried about the long-term financial ramifications of paying a guy like that over $40 million for the next 3 years. Cause more likely than not, he's picking up that player option in 27, 28 or whatever it is.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we've always talked about on here, right, Dame, is like there isn't going to be a player that you acquire if you're the Kings that doesn't give you some concern somewhere, whether it's their contract, whether it's injury history, whether it's performance. Is this guy good enough to put you over the top? All this other stuff. Somebody's gonna have some type of warts to their resume.
Contract and money length being long, or in the BI case, too short.
Exactly. And he got injury issues as well. So I'm the guy I would want most is Kuzma, but kind of like you alluded to as well, Chris. I do see benefits in the possible Zach LaVine acquisition, even with Malik Monk there. You talked about the playoffs and having another guy that can go get a basket. I mean, I think that I think that's an underrated trait to your roster that nowadays. Like you need, a bucket getter, whether it's a guy that can create or hit an open jump shot for you or whatever the case may be, just to keep them dogs off of you. You know what I'm saying? If you're De'Aaron Fox or if you're Sabonis or Keegan or whatever the case may be, if you can surround those guys with another score, it can only help. So I know a lot of people are down on the thought of Zach LaVine, but while he's not my first choice, I see benefit in Zach LaVine being here.
I mean, the biggest benefit might be you can get him on the cheap, right? Like if the Bulls are really trying to offload that contract and you can get him for Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, and 13 or whatever the package would be, like that, that might be a way to upgrade the team on the cheap that otherwise wouldn't be available. And again, I have no idea what Kyle Kuzma would cost, but I wouldn't hate the deal. I would totally get it because this is a team that, you're trying to win playoff series. You're trying to, I think their best way to get there is add scoring punch. I don't think that's a mystery after seeing what's happened in the play-in, and the first round of the playoffs the last 2 years. Right. So yeah, Zach LaVine would make sense. It's a lot of money, man. It's a lot of money for a guy coming off an injury like the one he has, and I would have concerns about that too, for sure.
Do you think anything, Chris, is what do you think Malik's role is the same next year? Do you think he's a six man again?
That's a good question. I know he said he wanted to start, and Mike Brown always says it's not really about it's who starts, it's who finishes games. But I mean, I think if you're paying him, you're probably starting him. But then, where does Keon fit in? Are you going to start? Are you going to start small and go De'Aaron, Malik, and Keon in the same starting lineup? Do you bring Keon off the bench, and is Keon as effective off the bench? I really like Malik in his current role, and I do think like that there's value to him bringing that energy off the bench. I think there's a ton of value to that. I don't think the Kings, necessarily need to start him just to start him because he'll be one of their highest paid guys and now clearly a part of their core now that he's on this contract. I like where he's at, what he brings, and the flexibility, the ability. You start off slow and then you inject Malik into the game, and his ability to run with the second unit and play with Davion and with De'Aaron at different times. Like I like the flexibility you have of bringing him off the bench. I wouldn't have any problem with starting him, but I do wonder, like, given the Kings' overall sort of lack of depth, if it were me, I would keep him coming off the bench. And then obviously he's still going to be a crunch time guy for you. So I care less about who's starting. And I'm kind of with Mike Brown in the idea that, like, you want your best guys finishing the games, and starting is less important.
We don't know if this is the case at all. We're just having a conversation. We're not reporting or whatever. But if in negotiations Malik said, "Yeah, if I come back, I want to be a starter," and Mike Brown is there too, so it's not like they're doing this without Mike. But everybody's of the understanding. Yeah, I want to start. Would you? Because I'm with you. I would like for him to come off the bench, but if he says he wants to start, that wouldn't be something that would keep me from signing him. It's like, all right, well, that's okay. If that's what you
Yeah.
want to get back here,
Mhm.
then let's do it.
Yeah, and you figure that out, and maybe that's something that changes down the road. But, like, I think we've seen in the NBA, Manu Ginobili, Andre Iguodala, guys like who can be super important players on championship type teams who come off the bench, and it's less important, the fact that they're in the starting lineup and their names being read during intros. I think I do think it's less important, but, like, I don't know, man. Like, what happens to Keon if he's not starting? Right? Is, like, if you're bringing in Keon midway through the first quarter, is he the same guy that he was last year? Is Keon benefiting from getting a lot of minutes with the second unit, or do you maximize Keon by playing him with the starters? Just saying, hey, go be a dog defensively and hit open shots when the ball finds you. Right. Like, I think that's how you maximize Keon. I just think everything fits a little bit better when you have Malik coming off the bench. But yet, like, if Malik's like, yeah, start me or I'm leaving, I'm not tied to keeping him on the bench. I'm like, yeah, sure. We'll start you. We'll figure that out later. Like, that's all good with us. So I get both sides of it. I don't think it's ultimately going to be that important, but we'll see. Like, I think, like I said, it's who's playing in the last 5 minutes of games that matters.
I think there's also a scenario where, like, Malik's coming off the bench right now today on June 21st with the way that the roster is made up. But we got a few other ideas in mind, and if those things start to shake out, maybe it does make more sense for Malik to start because now we have a stronger second unit, and we would like him in that starting lineup. Of course, that's all who knows at this point. But I'm
Yeah,
still of the belief that Malik will do what's there. Like, everyone is in the best interest, working within the best interest of what will help the Sacramento Kings win basketball games.
Yeah, and my second thought after just the pure surprise of, the idea of Malik taking a discount to come back. Okay, what's this mean for Kevin Herter? Right?
Mhm.
Like, the guy who's been in every trade rumor, really for the last, what, 6 months or whatever it's been, 4 months, 5 months, whatever. Is he going to be he was a starter, super streaky player. I know there was some frustration about, his limitations defensively midway through last year. Is it I do wonder, like, was Kevin Herter's future addressed at all in the Malik Monk conversations? And if Kevin Herter's on the way out, and say he is on the way out for somebody who plays a different position, whether that's, Kyle Kuzma or even Zach LaVine, like, does that create more of an opportunity for Malik? And was it important for Malik to know, like, I'll have an expanded role because, maybe some guys playing my same position won't be here next year. So, all the chatter would indicate that the Kings are aggressively shopping Kevin Herter and Harrison Barnes. And so, maybe that's part of the calculus
Yeah.
here for Malik. It's like, I'll have a bigger role next year, whether I'm starting or not, because, they'll replace Kevin Herter with potentially somebody who plays a different position.
Before we got another AI write-up of the show. Like, so
How did that happen?
artificial intelligence
What happened now?
writes these summaries of D'Lo and Casey. This one's in a little bit better shape than the last one is. The chat revolves around the upcoming concert at Malik's Nightclub in Sacramento. The excitement for Malik Monk's decision to remain with the Sacramento Kings and various aspects of Sacramento's nightlife and culture, including references to the beach town of Santa Barbara and the band Aldrin Revolution.
Revolution?
Who saw this?
I don't know. The artificial intelligence.
Yo, this is crazy.
Man,
Anyone
I went to
who ever
school.
has concerns about AI taking their job, just check out what YouTube is doing right now.
I
Good
will
job,
say,
Dave.
I went to school in Santa Barbara my first 3 years. I spent 3 years at a junior college because I was an overachiever. It was when Revolution, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but it was when Revolution was playing house parties in Santa Barbara. And I have a few very distinct, maybe some fuzzier memories of going to Revolution concerts in Santa Barbara. Now they're like a big, like, national band that everyone knows about.
They are.
So maybe AI did a deep dive into my Santa Barbara background.
Could be, because I don't know who mentioned Santa Barbara.
I don't know what
AI
what is it?
Revolution.
I don't know what that is.
No, I didn't
It's
hear
like
that.
kind of like a reggae style band.
Oh,
Like
I wouldn't have thought that either.
I wouldn't either. No, but it explains why your memories of them are a little bit hazy.
Yes, yeah. Another question I had: if Malik Monk had a nightclub in Sacramento, do you think there would be concerts at that nightclub?
Well, we could do it. We're the ones planning it. We're the ones putting this thing together. We could have YG out there. Instead of Ace of Spades, YG coming through to Malik's this week.
Sure. Yeah. No, I just wonder, the type of nightclubs. I just don't know that they're the type of nightclubs I'm thinking about. I don't really know if they're known for hosting concerts.
Well, no, we don't
would be
think
the
that's
point.
it's not going to be that type of nightclub.
No, this isn't a James. This isn't James Harden's nightclub.
Yeah, no, this is a nightclub.
What would James Harden's club be?
Oh man, jeez.
I was just gonna see if you were gonna call it Harden's because that would be hilarious.
Oh, come on.
That would be hilarious.
Nope.
Oh, all right.
Nope.
You don't have to wonder what it is.
Oh man, I'll stick to going to Malik's.
Man, we're going to Malik's.
That's what I'm
we're
doing.
gonna make
Chris,
this
you got to
thing
come to
happen.
Malik's, man.
Yeah,
Man, I'm there.
The hottest
I'm
nightclub
there.
in the city.
we're gonna make this happen.
The old Hunking Lounge.
Oh, well, maybe we'll find a different location.
The old
Is Brandon
Avalon.
Ayuk invited?
Well, you tell us.
Come on,
We got-
man. It's got to get done.
When's
man.
We got Malik Monk Day. When's Brandon Ayuk Day?
I think my whole thinking throughout all of this is that, even going back to early in the off season, when it was apparent this was going to kind of be drawn out, it was, in my mind, it was always like, yeah, this is probably going to get ugly at some point. There's probably going to be social media stuff. There might even be a trade demand, whatever. It's pretty typical for NFL contracts for all that stuff to happen. And then ultimately the Niners have done a pretty good job of getting these deals done. And, one thing John Lynch always says is deadline spur action. There's absolutely no deadline in June for anything, right? We're still a month away from players reporting to training camp. And so typically that report date serves as a deadline, and it has for the 49ers in the past when it comes to getting these deals done with George Kittle, Fred Warner, whoever it may be, Deebo Samuel, who I think was those negotiations were a lot more contentious. than these seem to be. I don't buy for a second that the 49ers don't want Brandon Ayuk, like he said in that TikTok video, which in my opinion was him just kind of trolling and just kind of. I think Brandon Ayuk has a really good mind about him and knows exactly how to push the buttons on social media and how to I don't know if change the narrative is the right way to put it, but how to add to a certain narrative, if that makes sense. It didn't necessarily move me in a way that like made me think, oh, this isn't going to happen, or the 49ers. I've never thought the 49ers were going to trade Brandon Ayuk. I still don't. My expectation is this deal is going to get done. And it'll be a lot like the other ones. I think it's just going to be difficult because the 49ers have so many highly priced players. The receiver market's exploding. And it's just going to be hard to keep everybody paid. So I think it's a difficult contract to do, but I think they'll do it just given their history of getting these contracts done.
Yeah, I think they'll get it done as well. I don't think if he's looking for that $30 million a year or, the reported 30 million, I don't think that's going to happen. And I think he's got to be okay with that. You know what I mean? It's easy for me to say, but I think 26 has been reported. I think that's more than fair for Brandon Ayuk, and especially when you talk about the team, right? Like they're giving you 26 in part because that's about all they can give you. It's not because they don't want to give you 30, but like that's about all they can do. They're giving you almost all that they can while being able to keep a team around you that's super competitive. I don't know. I think it's around that $26-27 million, and I think that's a good, fair deal.
I think it'll probably be a scenario where when the deal gets first reported, it'll be something that averages, 30 million or whatever. Just like when Adam Schefter or whoever the NFL reporter is that gets a tweet, it'll be from the agent, and the agent will, blow up the numbers to make it look bigger. But then there will be, void years tacked on at the end, and it'll be probably closer to what you're talking about, 26, 27, 28. My expectation would be, after the first 2 or 3 years of the deal, there would be an opportunity to sign a new one. So he could have another bite at the apple. It wouldn't be the type like Trent Williams, his contract when he signed a few years ago was essentially, it was a 6-year deal, but it was basically 2 3-year deals, right? One that they could opt out of and rework and, give him more guaranteed money and all of that. I would expect something along the same lines with Ayuk. And that's why this stuff is so complicated and gets so drawn out, because there's so many particulars in these contracts. And I will never begrudge a player for fighting for everything he thinks he's worth. But I think it's just going to be complicated. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if it's just one of those deals where, 2 or 3 years from, or 3 years from now, we're talking like, all right, Brandon Ayuk's he's gonna sign another extension and the money's gonna be a little bit different. I'd imagine that's what the 49ers want, because they're gonna need as much flexibility as possible going forward, because we're gonna be this time next year, we're going to be talking about Brock Purdy getting $50-55 million a year. And that's very much in the 49ers calculus right now too.
He's going to have a Super Bowl on his resume.
Great stuff, Chris. Great to catch up with you on Malik Monk Day. We'll have a VIP table waiting for you at Malik's when it's time.
Drop our name at the door. It's good. If they give you any hassle, just be like, come on, man. D-Lo and KC sent me.
I got you. I'll meet you at the door around the back, not the front door, but the one around the back.
Oh, yeah. We'll get you in the exclusive door, Chris. Great to catch up, man. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you.
Good to see you guys as always.